All right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We again hope you find these presentations both informative and relevant, and that you'll be able to take away knowledge that you can apply to your organization. This is the third in a 5-part webinar series hosted by Innovus and Oracle. The remaining series is scheduled to occur next Friday, May 29th, with the final part scheduled for Friday, June 5th. We'll be continue discussing topics that encompass the evolution of planning and budgeting, focusing on pain points organizations and particularly planners face when managing their periodic planning cycle. Today's specific topic revolves around managing planning versions. Today's presentation will be broken down into 3 parts. There will be a brief intro of Innovus and our speakers. We'll then walk you through a live demonstration around managing planning versions in EPM. And finally, we'll have some time for Q&A. As always, please make sure to submit your questions via the chat window throughout the presentation. We may address some questions throughout the webinar, and others we'll make sure to address at the end. I just wanted to spend a moment talking about Innovus and who we are. So Innovus is a full service provider of consulting services leveraging the Oracle EPM product stack. We've been an Oracle partner since 2012 and are recognized as a cloud excellence implementer using the Oracle EPM cloud products. All of our resources work closely with both users and Oracle product development to ensure our clients leverage the full feature set of the Oracle EPM cloud. Ultimately, we're striving to be that trusted advisor to our clients to help realize their vision of performance management and business analytics. We at Innovus work exclusively with Oracle products, and we're fully capable of delivering demonstrations for all of the business processes in the Oracle EPM cloud stack. Once again, I'm Gary Soreo, Vice President in charge of project delivery at Innovus. I've been working in consulting for the EPM BI space for the better part of the last 10 years. I started on the client side and have moved on to consulting with EPM back in 2012, which is when I joined Innovus. And since then, I've been working closely with our team to become a successful EPM implementer and a trusted advisor to our clients. I would now like to give Krishna Amara the opportunity to introduce herself. Krishna.
Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Krishna Amarur. I'm a consultant at Innovus. Have over 17 years of experience in EPM, BI, and data warehousing space in both technical and functional roles. I will be going over the version planning webinar today. Back to you, Gary. Thank you.
Thanks, Krishna. So just to reiterate, this is the third in our 5-part series. Our remaining webinars will be next Friday, May 29th. And then the following Friday, June 5th. All remaining sessions will be 30 minutes, including today. Recordings of our webinars will be posted on the Monday following the webinar on the Innovus website. All registrants will receive the link through email. With that, I would like to hand it off to Krishna. So Krishna, please take it away.
Thank you again, Gary. So we will be covering planning versions in EPM Cloud today. So there's multiple functionality that can be performed using versions in planning. What we will be covering today is target setting, plan iterations, creating of forecast snapshots, Whatif analysis. We will not go into detail in this webinar. We have one next Friday. We will be covering that in detail in the next webinar. We will talk a little bit about constant currency and how to lock finalized versions. So let's start with target setting. So versions in EPM Cloud is a standard dimension. And we can create 2 types of version members in the version dimension. So one of them being the standard bottom-up version, which can be used by planners and to enter the plan or forecast at the level, the lowest level at which you want to capture the forecast or a plan. Another option for creating a version member is the target, also known as the top-down version type, which can be used to enter targets at a roll-up level. So you can enter, in this example, in the slide here, you can enter a target at a total manufacturing level, and then your planners would enter data at a lower level, which is the individual entities over here. You can also use targets to set, as I said earlier, set targets at a higher level, at a higher roll-up level, a parent level in the hierarchy. And then these targets can also be distributed using a predefined logic like historical actuals or certain percentages to each of the lowest level members that give planners a starting point to start their budget. And then a target can be set. Planners are entering their budgets at the bottom level. Once all this is aggregated, you can always compare your target with your budget and see what the planners have entered versus the target. And we'll look at an example during the demo. For plan iterations, versions can be used to save off multiple iterations of plan, where you may want to save off an iteration of your budget as of a point in time and make changes based on some business changes that you foresee. So you can have multiple iterations. In the example in the slide here, I have plan 1, plan 2, and plan 3, 3 different iterations. And these are 3 different versions, 3 different data sets that can be compared with each other as well as with actuals to see the variance based on the changes that were made to each of the iterations. And then once you finalize an iteration, it can be saved off as a final version and logged so no one can make any changes to it. Taking a snapshot of versions, very similar to plan iterations. You can also take snapshots of versions, of forecasts. So every month when a forecast is completed, you can save off the forecast so that the next month, when the next month forecast starts and actuals, as actuals come in, actuals replace your forecast for that month. So if you wanted to keep a snapshot and compare your forecast trend, how it's changing as your actuals come in, you can create snapshots of forecasts and do your variance and compare how the forecast is trending. We'll take a look at an example for that too. Sorry about that. So versions can be used for Whatif analysis as well as constant currency. As I said earlier, Whatif analysis we'll cover in detail in the next webinar. Whatif analysis essentially is creating another version where you can change your revenue or expense drivers to see how changing those drivers impacts your budget or forecast. We will cover constant currency in detail in the demo. That is essentially related to if you had a multi-currency application and you have data being loaded into multiple currencies. So you could have your actuals that are coming in multiple currencies. You can have your forecast and budget that's being entered in multiple currencies. If you want to do a period over period analysis and remove the impact of FX fluctuations, you can use constant currency, and that can be used as a version. And we will see a demo for that too. So I'm going to leave the slideshow and we will go to the demo. Okay, I think I'm just going to, I'm going to show everything in Excel today. We will, whatever we can do in Excel can also be done in the web. And if we have time, I can show the web too, but we will be going over everything in Excel today. So I'm already connected to the server and I've created a task list with various functionality that I want to show for version planning. We'll start with target setting. So I'll open a form for target setting. And as I said earlier, if you have a target version, you can enter data at a roll-up level. In the example here, let's say product heads enter a target at a product group level. Planners can go in and enter their budget at an individual product level. So I'm just going to expand this. So you see the target is at a roll-up level or a product group level, and the plan is being entered, which is the bottom-up version called working, where data is being entered by individual products. And the roll-up can be compared to see how much of the target has been entered in the plan. So let's just enter something here, and this being Excel, I can enter a formula. So let's say I just want to increase the actual by 3%. submit. So the plan was entered at an individual product level. It's been rolled up, and now we can compare the plan against the target to see how much of the target was entered by the planners. So I have a smart view pool here that we can refresh and look at the data that was just entered. So you see 99% for tablets that I just entered, 99% of budget was entered against the target. So there's, you can see your historical actual, you see the target that was set by the product group, and then the budget roll up that can be compared with the target as a percentage of target. And these can be reports easily that can be created within the system. Right now, I'm just showing you a smart view retrieve.
So Krishna, just to that point, you would have the ability to say take this smart view retrieve and create a report in FR Studio that's able to be created on a scheduled interval and perhaps distributed to users so they can see what their planned percent is of target on a regular basis.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So yes, so we can create reports in FR Studio, in EPM Cloud, and then schedule them to be distributed automatically in an email to the various, like we had to do it in the past, where we were distributing reports weekly during the budget process to all the business unit heads that used to see the plan versus target. And then the schedule was changed to run daily during the last 2 weeks just before closing the budget. So yes, that is possible.
Krishna, this is RJ. Just want to jump in here. We got a couple questions that came through the chat window. The first being, is there a cap on the number of versions in a planning and budgeting application?
There's really no cap as such, but when you're making copies of your data, then you want to be careful how much data you're loading into your system. So even if you make multiple versions, you may want to clean up versions that are not going to be used anymore.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the second question, which sometimes I think could be a loaded question, but expands on your answer. What is the recommendation for the number of versions you should have in an application?
I think that depends on your data size, how much data you are loading into the application. And correct me if I'm wrong, Arjun, if you want to add something to this, but I would think it depends on the size and the amount of data that's being loaded into the system. I mean, I've seen cases where we've saved off snapshots of forecasts for all 12 months for multiple years.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And then also what we've been seeing that is what didn't exist, we believe, in the on-prem versions, but there are thresholds that exist on the cloud when it comes to things like numbers of members in a dimension. So we haven't hit it yet, but there's probably some type of limit there that we're not aware of. But yeah, I would agree with you. The data set, what you're loading is going to have, it's going to dictate how many versions you maintain within an application.
Any other questions?
Nope, we're good. Keep going.
Okay. So once your planning cycle is done, and we talked a little bit about iterations, so we can create an iteration of planning of the current plan and save it off as pass 1 or pass 2 or iteration 1, and then continue working on the current working version to change the numbers for any changes that you may want to make, and then compare those two too. So let's go back to this form here. So if you want to make a copy of a version, you can very easily use the out-of-the-box functionality that I have my cursor on a copy version icon here in the Smart View menu. You can click on that, or you can have a business rule, and we'll look at both in different settings. Let me just do the copy version for now. So you click on copy version. You can select the scenario. In my example, I will be showing for a plan. So we select plan as a scenario. And you copy from, this is the working version. The working version is what users are always working on. So we copy data from working version. And again, that's not the mandate. You can always have different versions, but in general, working version is what is used. Let's say I want to save this to pass 1. Click on go. So the out-of-the-box functionality allows you to select specific entities if you just wanted to save off some entities that you're going to change. In this example, I'm just going to save everything. All the data in working version is going to be copied to pass 1. Do a copy data? Yes. So this is finished and we got a successful message. I'll cancel out of this. And now when I'll come back to my sheet where I had the target versus plan variance, I copied my data to pass 1. So from working to pass 1. So I'm just going to change this to plan pass 1. That's what I named the version. Refresh. And you see the data has been copied from working to pass 1. And it's very easy to make multiple versions of data. But again, as we said earlier, just be careful about how much data you're saving off in your database, because obviously your performance will be impacted. So now you can change the working data and always compare your first iteration with your current working version, or as many iterations as you want. Now, similar to making copies of versions for your plan iterations, you can, we talked about forecast also. So making snapshots of forecast, because forecast as of a point in time, every month is getting replaced with your actuals. So you want to save the forecast that was entered for a month and compare it with the next month's forecast. In order to do that, so as I said earlier, there's multiple ways you can make copies. We use the out-of-the-box copy functionality. We will now look at running a rule that gives me a little bit more flexibility on what year I want to copy, what version I want to copy to, and any other parameters that you may want to enter in the rule. Right now, I just have year and version. So I just double click on this item here that says Save Forecast Snapshot. Have a rule that shows up behind the scenes. This rule will take the year that I'm entering and the version I select here and copy it over to copy working over to that specific version. So there's forecast snapshots here. We'll copy everything to June forecast. Say OK. I will launch it. Say OK. Close. So now the forecast has been copied. So if you see here, I have May forecast, June forecast, and the working version, which is the current. So May forecast has actuals from January through April, with May through December being your forecast numbers. Your June forecast has January through May actuals, with June through December as your forecast numbers. Working is the current working. So based on this example, I'm in July. Let's say we are in July. You have data that's actuals that are from January through June, and July through December is your forecast. So you can compare your various versions. You can do an analysis of variance analysis. In this example, again, I've just set prior forecast. So this is going to give you working versus the prior forecast and how it has changed. So you can track your forecast as it changes every period. You can also obviously do quarterly variances too. I'm showing
Krishna,
variances here. Yes.
Krishna, sorry again. Another question came through the chat window, and it revolves around security. How are we controlling access to these target versions? Like, can we lock them, prevent users from copying to different versions? Maybe you could just touch on that a little bit.
Yes, sure. So you can lock down a version, and you can do that in a few ways. So you can use security. So if you use security, the box security, where you have certain users and groups where you can set it to either read only. If you do not want, if you're working on some kind of a version that you do not want certain users to see, You can set it to none, so no one will see it but you, or whoever has access to it. Or you can give everyone access to write it. Like working version, you usually want everyone access to it, everyone who's planning or who's entering forecasts. But yes, you can lock off a version, you can set it to none so no one can even look at it. So when you're copying, if you do not want someone to copy the version from one version to another version, then that's where you can also do security, where you don't give them access to any other version so they don't copy over. But mostly, depending on the role, not everyone can copy over forecast versions, and not everyone has access to all the entities. So you can also use something called valid intersections, which we also have a webinar on June 5th. So a combination of valid intersections and security can be very powerful in how you want users to enter your data, look at the data, and what they see on the forms. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thanks, Krishna. There's another follow-up question, but I'll hold off. You're on a roll.
Okay.
Hey, Krishna.
I'm actually.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Vijay. I have one question. So in our organization, users are having an option of doing the copy data from one version to other version. So in the meantime, they are doing, right? They are copying the data to a different, wrong version. So is there any option of doing, undoing the data for that? So actually user want to copy the data from source version 1 to version 2. Instead of version 2, user has been copied to version 3. So is there any process of doing undo of the data out of the box instead of not doing go for the calcs or anything else?
So undo option is not, it cannot be done. There's really no undo once you copy over the data. What you can do is restore from a backup, which we usually do, which the system automatically does every night. Or you just have to manage security and educate the users to make sure they know what they're copying the data to.
Right, and one other point I would add to that, Krishna, is generally when we're creating a process for users to be able to copy to different versions, we're also creating a clear business rule that can be run to clear out any particular version. So if we had to, and a user did inadvertently copy data to a version they shouldn't have, or that they did it too soon or at the wrong time, we could clear that data using a business rule as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I mean, that's what we are doing now. We have a specific business rule to do that. So I'm just thinking, instead of business rule, is there any out of the box option to do that? That's it. Thank you for that. I got the answer.
Okay. Okay. So moving on to constant currency. So if you had a multi-currency application, as I said earlier, and you wanted to do period over period or year over year variances or budget versus last year's actual variance, obviously FX plays a big part in the variance itself. So let's take the example here. I have an FX rates sheet here. So for FY16 actual, there's certain rates, and if I change this to FY15 actual, you see a different set of rates. So if I were to compare actual from FY15 to actual to FY16, the comparison is not always apples to apples because the FX always plays a big part in how the numbers look. And this is assuming that USD reporting is the reporting currency. All the data is converted to USD, and USD is being used for all the reports and comparisons. So what we can do is have a business rule that will run when I select this task list here. The business rule, when run, it restates the prior year actual. So in this case, it restates FY15 actual using FY16 FX rates. So FY15 and FY16 data can be compared without the FX fluctuations. And we'll take a look at an example once I finish running this rule. So I'm running the rule. I have nothing set. I've set the year, everything in the rule itself. So I'm just going to launch it. It's not prompting me for anything. Okay, close this. And now if I go to the year over year constant currency report here, this shows you the FY16 in the example being the current year actual. So if there's the FY16 actual here that you can see, and the next set of columns is FY15 constant currency version, where the data for FY15 has been restated or recalculated using the FY16 FX rates. So you see the variance. So you have a variance that has no FX fluctuations between year over year. Now, if we just left the data as is for FY15 using the FY15 rates, so this is the data as is in FY15. And if you look at the variances, you can see the difference in the FX that the variance shows. So you can look at your data as is, do a variance, have a constant currency version, do a variance, and you can do a variance with your actual prior year. You can also do a variance with your budget. You have certain budgeted rates. You have your prior year actual. You can restate your actual using your budgeted rates and do a comparison without the FX fluctuations. That's all I have in the demo. If anyone has any more questions, you can take them.
Thank you very much, Krishna. RJ, did we have any more questions in the chat window?
No, it looks like we got all the, oh, actually there was one last question that we saved for last, and this actually may be tied to a future webinar. And the question was, what about using custom names for versions in SmartView? So, and that would be, I'm assuming from a user perspective, can a user create their own name for versions?
Yeah, I mean, so sorry, Krishna, just to interject here. You know, if all the users are sharing the versions that exist within the version dimension, then obviously they don't really have control over what those versions are called. You know, it's going to be pretty generic naming conventions. But to your point, RJ, you know, if we did have a future potential webinar around something like sandboxing, that would give users a little bit more control over what they're naming the individual versions that they're creating. So that's one way to accomplish that, definitely through sandboxing. And we definitely have talked about making that a future webinar where we could explore that a little bit deeper.
Great. That was the last question. Great job, Krishna.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, again for joining. Keep in mind, we have two remaining webinars in this series, next Friday and the following Friday, June 5th. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.